Hi, my name is Jeff Pagano, and welcome to the Harpin On Rugby podcast. Now, so far this season, as our guest, we've had Tom, who won our Youth Prediction League. We had David, who won the forfeit prize, also known as the Jersey of Shame. And this week, to complete the set, we have the winner of our new knockout competition, the Harpin Mug. He's here earning his 70th Harpin cap on the pod. And there it is. Welcome to Mr. Conor Cronin.
Great to be back. Great to be able to get good use out of this mug as well. My favorite part of the mug is not the details that I won, but it's what's on the back, where it reminds me all the people I beat on the way there, including who was that in the final? Oh, sorry, yeah, you.
Okay, I beat
Tom in the semi-final.
He went on to win. I was happy to have beaten Mr. Statman Kino in the semi-final, but I left it all out in the field and I didn't hold on to it for the final, and you got the better of me. But no, it was a bit of crack and fair play, and we'll see how we get on.
You know what? It was our kind of final scoreline as well. You know, it was only tiny margins in it, half a point. Very proud owner of this.
It's probably a late Dragons drop goal that clinched it or something like that. But listen, it's all a bit of crack. Listen, let's turn our attention to what happened in the Loftus Versfeld Stadium in Pretoria, which is our main topic of discussion this week. Here's a generic 80-word summary of the match. Leinster fell 39-31 to the Vodacom Bulls in Pretoria, despite a spirited comeback, trailing 22-10 at halftime. Tries from Cooney, Tommy O'Brien, Penny, and Clarkson, plus Prendergast's place kicking, briefly gave them a 24-22 lead. Tactical shifts and sharp handling kept them in contention, but altitude, missed chances, and a late interception try by David Creel sealed the Bulls' win. Leinster earned a try bonus point, showing grit and attacking flair, but couldn't quite finish the job in a thrilling URC clash. Now, obviously, we'll be going into a bit more detail than that, and after focusing last week on Leinster's difficulties in attack and saying how important it was to turn that around, since we went from 0 points to 31, I suppose we did manage something of an improvement, Conor.
Yeah, look, anything was an improvement, I think, based on last week. And I was so frustrated at the end of last week that it just felt like, with the exception of one very early opportunity coming off a maul, and then we fumbled the ball, and it never looked like we were going to score after that. And that was the disappointing part for me last week, was getting nilled and never looking like we had it in us to get any more than that. Whereas this week, as you've mentioned, at one stage we've got a lead. We've got tries from forwards and backs. We've got good game management. We've much better attacking shape. And we've a lot of players who kind of put their hand up and said, yeah, I want to get on the scoring here, please. I want to do something that makes a difference for going forward. I think from looking at the set piece, which was messy last week. I mean, it was, did any forwards get off the bus? Messy. And then set piece became a real platform for us. It became a space where, we go from conceding penalties left, right, and centre at the scrum last week to winning penalties, and that those opportunities creating field territory, good lineouts. I haven't looked at the stats for the game, but I really feel like our lineout was actually effective. Like it was actually making inroads, particularly compared to last week. And it just felt like everybody had a better idea of where they were meant to be and when they were meant to be there. Of course, there's times when, somebody's a half step ahead and the ball is thrown behind him, or somebody hasn't run on fast enough and so knocks on as he goes to reach badly for a ball. And those moments are still going to happen this early in the season. But as I say, it was just that sense that there was not just desire. There was clearly desire to get over the line this time. There was clearly desire to get more scores on the board. The fact that we were 12-0 down and we went for that early penalty. Just saying, lads, let's settle the nerves here. Let's put something on the board, and everything we build after this is worth doing. And I think that from that perspective, it was good decision making was a big part of that. I think we made a lot of good decisions. We made a couple of bad decisions later on in the game. I mean, there were moments where we backed our attack just a little bit too much. And I think we might have been better towards the very end of the game, kicking for the points rather than going for another try. But look, I just think that we had a better shape. We had more players looking for inroads, looking for opportunity. Even some of the runs that players had. There was one lovely moment where Will Connors cut some crazy angle trying to go through after a line out. And it was quite surprising to see, where last week it just felt very one out, direct, go straight. We don't know what else to do. And this week there was creativity, there was opportunity, there was just a generally more positive flow to how the attack was shaping up. And, little glimpses into what Blaine Dahl might actually be looking for from the players. Again, as I said already, far from perfect, but to run in 4 tries and 4 very different tries as well. That's, well, I say 4 very different tries. Clarkson's try and Penny's try could be deemed very, very similar to each other, but it's that spread between forwards and backs shows creativity, shows invention. We've got Sam with some great kicking out of hand, looking for territory, looking for space. We had any second now, Luke McGrath's name will come back into my head. With Luke McGrath with box kicks that were genuinely contestable, looking for ways we could make moves going forward, looking for ways where we could get players into space. I was quite happy with the attack in general, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, if you take the game in isolation from a Leinster point of view, we would generally say, well, God, we could have gotten the 5 points. That would be the starting point. Like, we led twice in the second half. We had the lead and we handed it back to them. And I would say most of the Bulls' scores came from opportunities we handed them. But you can't help but compare. You've always got last week as context, right? And we were talking last week about, we made a whole point here on the pod about just where was the attack? I mean, what were we actually even trying to do? Just the basic ability to advance the ball down the field ourselves. There just was no getting into the Stormers 22 unless they gave away a penalty. It just wasn't happening. We had no strategy. So if nothing else, it was almost a shot to nothing in Pretoria, where we kind of knew the Bulls had always beaten us there. There was always a chance we were going to lose. But we had to at least fix that issue, if nothing else. And they most certainly did that. I mean, even that 3 points, when we finally got that duck egg off the board, I know we were already 12-0 down, and we will talk about that. But the ball, we started with the ball further back, and we moved the ball up the field, won a penalty, and took the penalty. That's how we've always gotten scores in the past. And then, you take the try, like we'll talk about individuals later on, but the Tommy O'Brien try in the second half, we had just scored, and we took the restart and literally went. I mean, Tommy O'Brien caught the ball in one corner, and then couple of minutes later, he was scoring in the other corner. There was a little bit of a lucky bounce along the way, but usually the advancement of the ball, there was good runs from the likes of Cooney. I think Baird had a run, and there was a lot of good carries. But it was the attack patterns as well. The passes were crisp, the support lines were perfect, the blocking runs were good. Everything was how we expect it to be. How it should have been last week in Cape Town. So, there was definitely a lot of positives on the attacking front.
There's definitely that sense that players were just more switched on to each other, because I say the ball went forward. that was a really big thing for me. Like that, just in comparison to last week. I mean, it's no less than the standards we expect normally. We want to see that from Leinster all the time. We want to see that kind of positive go forward play. But players were actively engaged in trying to find, okay, where's the soft shoulder and where are the yards to be gained? And I'm expected to do a big carry now, so I'm going to do a big carry now. And not just that then as well, like a little bit of guile, a little bit of subterfuge in there as well, trying to find, create space for the backs to run into.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, another thing we talked about last week, I mean, we did find one of the positives we found was Sam's kicking game. And, his touch finders were pretty good for the most part in Cape Town. But the problem is we weren't doing anything on the end of it to make any points out of it. But this time, when we got into the 22 as well, like you said, we had 2 tries from short mauls. We almost had another one from I think it was the Ryan Baird under the posts. We created scoring opportunities in situations where we'd expect it. You know what I mean? When we got a couple of times when they had to bring the ball back over their try line, gave us a 5-meter scrum. You get that, yeah, especially at Leinster, a club like Leinster that's looking to win trophies. You get points from that. You've got to come away from points in those situations, and for the most part, we were doing that. So there was plenty of positives on that front.
I'd say the aggression that was required to make that happen, and I don't mean aggression as in anger. I mean aggression in the sense of hard running and chasing the ball and chasing the player and getting those moments where you force them to carry it back over, or you force them to make a mistake, or you force them to kick badly from inside their own 22. I think that's the biggest difference between last week and this week, is that intent and aggression were present where they weren't last week.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, I mean, you talk about that early 12-0 lead. Given what happened last week, to go 12-0 down so early in this one, very easy for the heads to drop. But they didn't, and they obviously had their game plan, and they just stuck to it, got into it, and they really had the Bulls on the ropes. But like I say, we will talk later about how we sort of handed the game back to them, almost literally. But I mean, the fact is that was, and for the most part, that was the Leinster we've expected. I mean, we were celebrating a trophy over this same club just a few months ago, and we got that trophy monkey off our backs, whatever. But now you have to go on and play like champions. There's a reason in this league that 4 different teams have won it in 4 seasons. And this team that we're playing is probably the leading contender of the ones who haven't won it, if you're going to pick one that's possible to make it 5 out of 5 different winners. So we've got to be able to bring it on occasions like this. And for the most part, we did, but obviously we have to get better. Well, elsewhere in the URC, both Ulster and Connacht had their matches postponed this weekend after Storm Amy affected conditions and travel arrangements alike. But Munster managed to keep a spirited Cardiff side at bay to win at Thomond Park. This means there are 4 teams with 2 wins in this young season. There's Munster, the Bulls, the Stormers, who put away the Ospreys, and Zebra, who struck late to defeat the Lions in Parma on Sunday. Benetton also won for Italy, defeating Glasgow, while Dragons and the Sharks played out a 17-all draw on the stereotypical rainy Friday night in Newport. But now we must return to Leinster's performance in Pretoria, and we're going to try to keep things positive for now, looking at some of the individual displays that impressed us most. Who stood out for you, Connor?
Look, there's a lot of players in this game who put their hand up and said, keep an eye on me, please. I want to be playing more regular rugby. There's a few who didn't, a few who I might have expected more from. I'm not going to get into those. They've got a Monday review in HQ to deal with that problem. But I think of the players who put their hands up, I think, if we start from 1 to 15, realistically, I think Paddy McCarthy is one. I think Paddy McCarthy had a really, really solid shift where you might not have expected him to. People might have looked and said, young lad who doesn't have a lot of experience going up against a Bulls front row, he might have a tough time of it. I think he did a pretty good job of keeping his side of the scrum fairly secure. He didn't light up the park, doing anything else particularly. But his primary job, you're a front row forward, your primary job is scrummaging. And I think that he can be pretty happy with the shift he put in. I think it was great to see Thomas Clarkson back on the field. I think we missed him last week. I think we could really have done with his presence coming on the field after Rabba went off against the Stormers. I'm going to skip our second row. I have my reasons, and I think that Soroka is another player who, every time he's been given a chance over the last couple of years, he really shows that he's worthy of the opportunity. He's one of those players bringing that aggression I was talking about. You know, one of those players who's going chasing. He wears himself out over the course of his time on the pitch. And I think that going forward, he's going to become one of those players we rely on a lot when other players are off, be it on Ireland duty or if somebody's injured. I think we're going to find ourselves looking at Soroka and saying there's a solid presence to have. I think aside from the yellow card, I think Connor's had a good game. The yellow card is kind of unfortunate. If the player takes the ball cleanly, he's never dipping. He's never moving down. 100%. And Connor smashes him in the guts in that situation. The unfortunate bounce of a rugby ball, and he's off for a yellow card. And deservedly, it was definitely a yellow. Head contact like that should always be at least yellow. So, but I think the mitigation is definitely there. But again, I think
you should tell that to South African commentators.
South African comms.
They were baffled. They were baffled, and I would have loved to personally fly over there and explain to them why there was exactly what you described, that mitigation.
Yeah, and that's all it is. It's just it's an accident, but it is head collision. So you got to do what you got to do. I think Luke McGrath had. I think he had a decent game while he was on. I was delighted to see Finton come on when he did. You know, we could have said, let's keep Luke on for 78 minutes and give Finton Gunn the last two. And I think when he came on, Gunn impressed. I think he played well. And Sam, again, let's take the last 10 minutes out of it. But I think for 70 or so minutes, I think Sam played really well. I think when it came to that penalty, maybe it was the time, having missed the drop goal just previously, it might have been the right time to ask Kieran Frawley to step up and take it instead. But look, that's 2020 hindsight and all that. I wasn't on the pitch. I wasn't making the calls. But I think he had a good game. I think Hugh Cooney had a good game. I think he's, not just his try. I think he was, good running lines, defended well in his channel. I think he did a good job on the day. Tommy O'Brien, the rise of Tommy O'Brien, I think he is really gonna be looking for his opportunities to get a green shirt this year, and he'll be fighting hard to get it. There are other players who want it, but I think he just shows every time he gets the ball. And you mentioned it before. He's the one catching the restart, but he's also the one scoring the try 2 minutes later. He's got a lot of strings to his bow, and I want to see what he can do in a green jersey later in the year. I think Andrew Osborne is one who we might have said, oh, geez, it's a pity now Larmer's gone. And it is a pity. Larmer's got another injury. That guy cannot catch a break at the moment. But watching the game back, the number of times Osborne is tackling big, big men. He's tackling back rowers, he's tackling second rowers, he's tackling wingers, he's tackling centres. He's putting himself about the park in a really positive way. And I think he had, for a fella who's so young, clearly he's spent a chunk of time looking at his own game and how he can improve and how he can play better. And I really think yesterday's a good example of that, an example of a young player coming up and taking his opportunity well. Because I think he had a really good game yesterday. When it comes to our substitutes, just a quick shout out for the Slim Reaper. Rabba came on angry. Rabba came on looking to take names in the scrum. And the fact that he had Jack Boyle helping him on the other side, I think that's really positive. And I think Culhane wanted to come on and play hard. And I think Frawley for all he was probably hoping for minutes at 10, but minutes are minutes. And I think, again, he had a reasonable time when he came on, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a good point made on the set pieces, because we were talking earlier about the attack. And I think we were saying in our preview show how the most important thing for Leinster was how they played as a team. It wasn't actually so much about individual performances. So the attack patterns were really good, and we covered that. But the set pieces as well, the scrums were on point. We did lose a couple of scrum penalties, but we won a lot of them as well. We were let from the start on our own feed, which I think is the most crucial thing. Just straight in, straight out, no messing. You don't want to give their chance.
That was something lacking last week.
Yeah, absolutely. And the lineouts were simpler as well. The only lineout we didn't do simple was the one at the very, very end, which we went for that call, that short call to the front and back to the thrower. And maybe it was a gutsy call to catch them off guard, but I think we had a chance if we just took the simple ball, which would work for us all day. But anyway, overall,
we allowed them
impressive.
We allowed them to use the sideline as a defender.
Absolutely.
And you're taught that as you're growing up. Your sideline is your extra man. That's if he's coming at you along there, get him over it. And that's all they had to do. And it was a case where even just all they had to do was swivel his legs a bit, and but for the most part, we were making the right calls. We were doing good execution in the lineouts, and we were stealing a few of them. I mean, you talk about Alex Aroka; he was stealing lineouts for fun. I'm getting the impression. I mean, he is ready. He seems ready now based on this performance, and if he continues in this kind of vein and he puts in these kinds of performances in October, he's knocking on that door to move up. I mean, what else can you do at a province like Leinster? And when you look like you're ready, maybe, there's a lot of Lions players to come back, especially in the back row. But if there's any injuries there, we're ready for the players to step in for the big European matches and stuff like that. And I really think he's putting himself in that frame. Tommy O'Brien, you mentioned him. Yes, absolutely. There's no end to what he can do. He's picking these lines, surging from 122 to the other almost at times. And of course, he's also getting stuck in. Now, that penalty after that try, I mean, you had a situation where Sam's on the ground. There's two bulls pushing him. There's another two bulls standing over him. It's literally 4 against 1, right? There's pushing. Tommy comes over, pushes one guy. He falls over, and he's the instigator. Do you know what I mean? He saw 4 against 1, and he came in. And I swear to God, that happens at the other end. A Bulls would do exactly. I don't care. I don't care so much that we gave a penalty away there, because that's one of those moments where the whole squad, it just felt like a 99 call.
Absolutely. It felt like you'd be disappointed if someone didn't.
You don't mess around with my pal here, and they all stepped up though, and I was quite pleased to see that.
And all that Tommy brings, he was catching, he was kick chasing, the surging runs. No try saving tackles this week, but it didn't happen. It wasn't a situation for that, but he's done plenty of them in the past. Scoring tries himself, all this stuff, all that he brings, and then there's this on top of it, a bit of fire in the belly as well. So it is good to see. And I'll just finish. I mean, we could go on about loads of players. Hugh Cooney, I thought he played well. The only disappointing thing with him was that might have had the wrong studs on. He slipped a few times at key moments, both in attack and defense. But apart from that, he's slotted in well in that center. So he's another one coming on. Finally, Max Deegan. I thought you said Luke did have a good outing. I thought that when he took over as captain, I don't want to be too harsh on Luke, but I think when Max was captain for that section of the second half, I thought maybe he could have been captain for the whole tour. We talk about the Max Deegan All-Stars. I think that he's that kind of leader. It's that kind of his team. But he did put in that kind of display. Like literally, as soon as he had the captaincy, he had a run from one end of the pitch to the other almost. He had one of those barnstorming runs we expect him in South Africa. But listen, he's on form. It's a shame he didn't play full 80 minutes both weeks, but still, it's there were a lot of positive Now, just to be clear, our chosen topics for this pod have been focused mainly on the positives from Leinster's performance. But obviously, given the result, it wasn't all good. So what we're going to do is we're going to save the negatives for our bonus video, which you'll find on our YouTube channel this Tuesday morning. I just thought after last week's doom and gloom pod, we'd do it this way just to keep things upbeat. And to be fair, there were some balanced takes on the Harpin Facebook page after the final whistle. We had Kevin Callahan saying it was a better performance, should have gotten 2 bonus points out of it, but it was a game they had chances to win. After last week's ill-discipline, this was a much better performance. Then you had Christy O'Connor saying crossfield kicks killed us, and there were a number of times when they could have exposed us, but luckily we escaped. Saying all that, we were very unlucky not to have come away with 2 points. Please be sure to tune into our Facebook page and leave a comment on our post after the full-time whistle of every Leinster and Ireland match this season. Okay, look, we're going to leave it there for now. Many thanks to Connor for joining us. Looking forward to having you back on soon.
Thanks a million.
No problem. And as ever, be sure to stay tuned to us on all the socials during the week, starting with our bonus chat, posting on YouTube Tuesday, then our 80 Plus column, which is every Wednesday over on Substack. In the meantime, stay safe, everyone. Slán.